morning arrives softly, like a slow whisper moving through an empty house. Light seeps through the curtains, pale and hesitant, as if unsure it should enter. The air is still, and the walls seem to hold their breath. In the quiet room, a woman sits by the window, her hands resting gently on her lap, her eyes drifting beyond the glass where mist touches the garden. The world outside moves at the pace of a sigh. The distant sound of hooves fades somewhere along the cobblestone road, a carriage carrying someone toward a new day, but not toward her. Inside, the clock ticks once, then waits, as if time itself has decided to slow down and stay beside her. The room carries the scent of rain and the faint trace of candle smoke from the night before. Every object stands in place: the framed photograph, the folded letters, the small vase left empty on the table. There is no rush now, no sudden sound, no interruption from the world beyond the window. The house, once filled with footsteps and voices, has become a vessel for quiet. It feels as if the walls remember, holding every sound from before, yet offering none in return. The silence does not press. It only lingers, soft and endless. She moves slowly, not from fatigue, but from a quiet knowing that haste no longer has meaning. Her dress, dark and heavy, falls around her like a shadow that belongs to her body. Each movement of her hand, each turn of her head, happens in rhythm with the low hum of the morning air. There is nothing waiting beyond this moment, and so the moment expands, gentle and complete. She stands, walks toward the mirror, and meets her reflection, not searching for anything, only observing the stillness that mirrors her back. The mirror does not judge, it does not ask, it simply holds the image of someone learning how to breathe again in a world that has slowed to silence. The woman adjusts the ribbon around her collar, smooths the fabric near her wrist, and pauses. There is a sense that life continues, not with noise or urgency, but with the faint motion of air, the steady beat of a heart that endures because it must. The color of the morning light deepens, and the house accepts it quietly, letting it rest on the floorboards, the furniture, the closed door. She walks to the hallway where the air feels cooler, touched by the breath of outside. The long curtains drift with the wind that slips in through the smallest space between wood and glass. Her fingers brush against the frame of a painting, the edge of a chair, the carved handle of the stair rail. These things are steady, patient, and familiar. They do not change, even when everything else feels altered. Each one seems to whisper in its own way, reminding her that stillness is not emptiness, and quiet is not loss. It is only another shape of living. Outside, the mist begins to lift, revealing outlines of trees, the curve of the path, the roof of the distant stable. Birds begin to wake, though they do not sing yet. They move softly among the branches, wings touching air without sound. She opens the window and the cool breath of morning fills the room. It carries with it the scent of damp earth, the faint sweetness of grass, and something older, something that feels like memory itself. She inhales, and for a brief moment, the stillness around her feels like comfort. The sound of fabric moves again as she closes the window and lets her hands rest on the frame. There is no story she must tell today, no decision waiting, no voice to answer. The day will unfold as it wishes, slow and even. The light will move across the walls, the shadows will lengthen, the air will cool again by evening. and through it all she will remain, walking, pausing, breathing, learning to live in the rhythm of quiet things. In that gentle space between dawn and day, she does not reach for what was lost, nor for what might come. She only exists, calm and unhurried, within the delicate stillness of her own breath. The world beyond the window keeps turning, but here, in the tender hush of morning, time chooses to stay. The first days of quiet. The first days move like shadows, stretching slowly across the floor, soft and deliberate, as if time itself has chosen to walk rather than run. Morning arrives not with sound, but with a gradual awakening of light that touches the room in fragments. The woman rises at the same hour each day, guided by habit more than desire, her movements measured, her breaths long and steady. The world outside continues, but it feels distant now, like a dream she once had and can no longer remember clearly. Inside, everything holds a different weight. Even the smallest sound, the creak of wood, the faint clink of porcelain, the whisper of cloth, seems to linger longer than before, echoing through rooms that have forgotten the noise of laughter. She begins her day, as she always has, though the purpose behind each action has softened. The kettle warms on the stove, its gentle hum filling the air with warmth that reaches her hands when she pours the tea. She sits by the window, looking out toward the fog-covered street. The carriages pass occasionally, wheels murmuring against the stones, a soft rhythm that fades as quickly as it arrives. Each sound becomes part of the quiet, joining the silence instead of breaking it. The world outside feels wrapped in a slow, endless breath, and she finds herself breathing in, tune with it. The house around her has changed without truly changing. The furniture remains, the books still line the shelves, the curtains still hang heavy and still. Yet something invisible has shifted, a layer of stillness that now coats every surface. Dust collects on picture frames, a fine shimmer in the pale light, and she does not brush it away. It feels almost sacred, as if the air itself has chosen to rest. She walks through the rooms, touching the edges of things as she passes. The smooth surface of the table, the cool brass handle of a drawer, the faint trace of wax where candles once burned late into the night. These gestures are not acts of memory, but of presence. Small affirmations that she still exists within these walls, that the world continues to hold her gently, even as it asks for nothing. When afternoon comes, the light softens again, slipping into gold before turning gray. The sound of the clock resumes, a slow, patient ticking that fills the space between one heartbeat and the next. She listens without thinking, allowing the rhythm to carry her through the hours. In this rhythm there is no rush, no expectation, only the quiet certainty that time will continue, no matter what it carries. She moves through her day like someone learning a new language made entirely of stillness. At times she stands before the tall mirror in the hallway. The woman reflected there looks calm, but beneath the calm there is a depth of quiet she has not known before. The reflection is softer, as if the light itself hesitates to touch her face. Her hands, folded neatly before her, move slowly when she adjusts the collar of her dress or smooths the folds of her skirt. The black fabric absorbs the light, creating an outline of simplicity, of patience, of continuity. There is no mourning in her eyes, no sharp edge of sadness, only the weightless kind of silence that fills a place when the noise has gone, and something gentler takes its shape. In the evenings, the air cools and she lights the lamps one by one. The soft glow spreads across the room, touching the walls in amber light. Shadows sway gently along the edges of furniture, like the quiet motion of thought that never forms into words. The house feels both smaller and more complete. She prepares her meal with steady hands, the knife gliding slowly across the cutting board, the kettle sighing once more as steam escapes into the air. There is a rhythm in these simple actions, a comfort in repetition. Each movement feels like a sentence in a language only she understands, unspoken, calm, complete. She eats by the window, where the last traces of daylight fade into dusk. The lamps outside the house begin to glow, one after another, forming a soft path of light that disappears into the fog. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, and then the sound dissolves. The quiet remains. She sits without moving for a long while, her eyes following the dim shimmer of light beyond the glass. It feels like the world is breathing with her, slowly, evenly, gently. When night deepens, she moves through the house once more, her fingers trailing lightly along the walls as she passes each room. There is no reason for this walk other than the comfort it brings. The familiar feel of wood beneath her fingertips, the faint scent of lavender that lingers in the hallway, the low hum of silence that fills every corner. It all gathers around her like a soft blanket. In the guest room, she pauses for a moment, not to remember but to observe. The bed is neatly made, the curtains drawn, the light from the hall spilling in just enough to reveal the shape of things. There is peace here, an order that feels almost kind. In her own room, she opens the window slightly before lying down. The night air slips in, cool and gentle, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant rain. The curtains sway lightly, a motion so small it feels almost imagined. She lies still, eyes half open, listening to the faint murmur of the outside world. It is not loneliness she feels, but a wide, quiet presence, like the sea before dawn, like the hush before the first sound of morning. Her thoughts drift without aim, not clinging to memory or expectation, only floating, light and formless. Some nights she wakes briefly, not startled, but simply aware of the dark around her. The moonlight filters through the curtains, painting the room in pale silver. The shadows lie across the floor like soft fabric, still and patient. She turns her head, breathes once, and lets her eyes close again. The silence welcomes her back, deep and undisturbed. In the days that follow, she begins to notice how life continues in small, quiet ways. The postman leaves letters at the door. The neighbor's child hums as he passes by the garden wall. The scent of bread drifts faintly from the bakery at the corner. Each of these details feels like a thread, connecting her to the world beyond her walls. She does not need to reach for them. They come to her, gentle and unassuming. The rhythm of the days begins to form a new pattern, not of waiting, not of mourning, but of existing softly within the space that remains. When she opens the curtains each morning, light greets her not as a stranger, but as an old friend returning quietly. She stands in the center of the room, breathing in the calm that fills the air, and there is a sense that the house, too, is learning to live again. The walls no longer hold only silence. They hold the sound of soft footsteps, the whisper of pages turned, the faint music of life continuing without needing to be loud. Evening arrives once more. The sky deepens to blue, then to gray, then to the still black of night. The lamps are lit again, and their light moves gently through the house, settling into corners like a promise of warmth. She sits by the fire, the small flame flickering, casting golden reflections that dance across her hands. There is peace in this repetition, a comfort in knowing that tomorrow will come in much the same way, quiet, deliberate, and kind. The first days of quiet do not demand anything from her. They do not ask her to move on or to look back. They only ask her to be, to breathe, to walk, to listen, to exist in the soft rhythm of each unfolding hour. In that rhythm, she finds something that resembles rest, not the kind that ends, but the kind that continues, flowing gently through her like a slow and endless river. The ceremony in the rain. The morning of the ceremony unfolds beneath a gray sky, its clouds thick and low, pressing softly against the rooftops of the town. The air is damp, filled with the scent of wet stone and the faint sweetness of fallen leaves. A gentle rain begins before anyone steps outside, small, careful drops that fall without sound, tracing paths along the glass and collecting in the folds of fabric and the creases of hands. The woman moves through her home in silence, the steady rhythm of rain blending with the measured cadence of her breath. There is no rush, no sense of arrival or departure, only the quiet understanding that the day must pass as all days do. She prepares as though following an old ritual she has always known. Each motion unfolds slowly, without hesitation, without emotion, pressing too near the surface. The dress is laid out on the chair, heavy, black, and precise. She lifts it carefully, feeling the cool texture of the fabric against her skin. The gloves come next, smooth and unyielding, a second skin that allows no warmth but offers a kind of steadiness. When she ties the ribbon beneath her chin, the reflection in the mirror shows not grief, but composure, shaped by time and duty. There is something almost sacred in the stillness of her movements, a rhythm that belongs not to sorrow, but to acceptance. Outside, the carriage waits. Its dark surface gleams faintly beneath the rain. The driver holds the reins without speaking, his coat glistening with droplets that gather and run down his sleeves. When she steps outside, the air greets her with cool breath and the soft murmur of rainfall on stone. The sound is constant but gentle, wrapping around the world like a whisper meant for no one. She steps into the carriage, her skirt brushing lightly against the edge of the door, and settles into the seat with calm precision. The door closes behind her, with a sound that echoes for a moment before fading into the rhythm of the rain. The wheels begin to turn, slow and deliberate, the horses moving through the narrow streets. The sound of hooves mixes with water splashing against the cobblestones, creating a pattern that feels both endless and tender. Through the small window, the world appears muted. Buildings blurred by rain, figures moving beneath umbrellas, a gray sky that seems to rest upon the earth itself. The woman watches without thought, her gaze following the slow procession of colorless shapes and distant lamps that glow like faint memories in the mist. There is no emotion sharp enough to disturb her calm, only the steady pulse of the journey. At the chapel, people gather under umbrellas, their voices low, their faces softened by the curtain of rain. No one hurries. The sound of footsteps on wet ground merges with the rustle of fabric and the distant toll of a bell. It is not a sound of mourning, not even of ceremony. It is simply part of the rhythm of the day. When the carriage stops, the woman steps down, her shoes meeting the damp earth with care. The air feels thick with quiet. She moves forward, each step measured, each motion part of a choreography, older than words. The others follow, their presence felt more as a shape than as a sound. Inside, the air is cooler. The walls hold the faint scent of wood and stone, and the candles flicker gently, their light bending through the haze of moisture that drifts in from the open doors. The woman stands near the front, her hands folded loosely together. There are words being spoken somewhere near her, soft, distant, but she does not follow them. She listens instead to the soft tapping of rain against the glass, the rhythm of drops sliding down the window pane. It feels as though the rain itself has become the voice of the world, speaking quietly, in a language too calm to disturb. Time stretches here. The ceremony moves not in steps but in breaths, each one merging with the next until they become indistinguishable. Faces bow, then lift, then bow again. The sound of paper, the movement of air, the shifting of cloth, all blend together into a single, continuous whisper. The woman feels no need to name the moment. It passes through her, soft as light through mist, and she allows it to move on without resistance. The candles sway once more, their flames bending slightly as if nodding to the silence that follows. When the doors open again, the rain greets them with steady patience. It has not stopped. It has only changed in tone, falling now in a finer mist that clings to hair and skin. The crowd moves as one body, slow and quiet, each step careful on the slick ground. The path beyond the chapel glistens like glass, each puddle reflecting the faint gray of the sky. The woman walks at the center of it all, surrounded but untouched, the sound of her steps merging with the sound of the rain. The carriage waits again, its dark form steady against the shifting light. As she returns home, the air inside feels warmer, almost kind in its stillness. The faint sound of rain continues outside, soft enough to feel like a heartbeat beneath the quiet. She removes her gloves, placing them neatly on the table, then unties the ribbon and folds it with care. Each motion feels final, not in the sense of ending, but of completion, a part of a cycle that has now come to rest. The mirror reflects her once more, the same figure, the same calm expression, though the air around her has deepened, thickened with the weight of a day that has asked for nothing and given nothing but stillness in return. Evening settles over the town like a gentle veil. The rain continues, softer now, the rhythm slower, as though the sky itself has grown tired. She lights a single lamp in the sitting room, and its glow fills the space with muted gold. The sound of water against the window becomes a lullaby, the steady song of the world, finding its way back to peace. She sits in her chair by the fire, her hands resting on her lap, her gaze following the faint dance of shadows on the wall. There is no sorrow here, only the quiet acknowledgement of the day that has passed. In the last hour before sleep, the rain finally eases, tapering into silence. The streets outside gleam with reflected lamplight, and the air holds the freshness that follows a long storm. The woman rises, moves through the house, and pauses once by the window. The sky has cleared enough for a single star to appear, trembling faintly in the distance. She watches it for a while, not thinking, not feeling, only breathing. Then she closes the curtain and turns away, her steps slow and light. The night accepts her in silence. The house settles once more, its walls sighing softly as the air cools. In her room, the sheets are smooth, the pillows cool. She lies down, letting the quiet wrap around her like a gentle tide. The rain has left the earth cleansed, the air still humming faintly with its memory. She closes her eyes, and the rhythm of the day fades into the rhythm of her breath. The ceremony is ended, but the peace it leaves behind remains, subtle, unspoken, complete. It is not the peace of conclusion, but of continuation, the quiet turning of one page into the next, in a story written without haste. The house after the door closes. When the door closes behind her, the sound is soft, like the final note of a long melody fading into still air. The faint scent of rain follows her inside, mingling with the quiet dryness of the house. The walls seem to breathe again as she steps forward, the echo of her movements finding its way through each room, slow and steady. The outside world slips away with the turning of the latch. The murmurs, the wheels, the rain, all left behind in a space she no longer needs to occupy. What remains is a silence that feels alive, a silence that does not weigh but wraps, warm and endless, around her shoulders. She removes her coat with slow, deliberate motions, the fabric heavy from the damp. The air holds a faint chill, the kind that comes not from weather, but from the emptiness left behind after presence departs. Her gloves rest neatly on the table near the entryway, the surface beneath them cool and polished. The small clock on the mantel ticks with quiet precision, marking each second like a heartbeat that belongs to the house rather than to her. She listens for a moment, her eyes closed, and lets the sound settle deep into her mind. In the parlor, the curtains are drawn halfway, allowing a muted gray light to seep through. Dust hangs in the air, visible only when the light catches it, swirling slowly, aimlessly, as if uncertain of where to go. The chairs remain where they always have, the cushions untouched, the fabric slightly faded from time. The air smells faintly of old flowers, of parchment, of something that once lived vibrantly, but has since learned how to rest. She moves through the space without urgency, her fingertips grazing the surface of the furniture, the edge of the piano, the curve of the window frame. Each object greets her quietly, patient and still, existing not as memory but as presence, unchanged, unmoved, eternal in its calm. She walks into the next room, her footsteps measured, her dress brushing softly against the floor. The faint sound of rain continues outside, but here it arrives as a whisper, a suggestion of rhythm rather than noise. The air carries a weight of time, as though each breath remembers something older than her own. On the table near the window lies a book, left open days ago. She does not remember the page, but she sits, folding her hands on the edge of the table, and looks at the words without reading them. The pages are yellowed, the ink slightly faded, yet the presence of the book feels comforting, a quiet companion that asks for nothing but stillness. As the afternoon deepens, the light softens into amber. The room fills with a low glow that stretches across the floorboards, turning the dust into slow-moving gold. The clock continues to tick, and somewhere deeper in the house, a door creaks faintly before settling again. She stands, walks to the fireplace, and kneels to arrange a few small logs. The match flares with a fragile spark before giving life to the flame, which grows slowly, curling upward with soft grace. The warmth that follows is gentle, diffusing into the air like a breath that has waited too long to be released. She watches the fire without thought, her eyes tracing the dance of light across the walls. The sound of the rain fades into memory, replaced by the low crackle of wood. The room seems to relax, its corners illuminated by shifting light that pulses with quiet life. The woman sits in the chair nearest the fire, her body still, her hands resting in her lap. The warmth touches her face, softens the lines of her expression. The calm is complete, an unbroken thread connecting her to the space around her. Later, she moves through the hallway again. The floors creak gently beneath her feet, each sound stretching into the distance before fading. The paintings along the wall watch with muted eyes, their colors dimmed by time. She pauses before one, a landscape of a wide field beneath an endless sky. The brush strokes seem to hold motion but frozen, as though the wind within the painting had been caught mid-breath. She tilts her head slightly, studying the horizon captured there, and feels a quiet kinship with the stillness it holds. In the kitchen, she lights a small lamp. The glow reveals the outlines of cups and plates neatly arranged, the faint trace of flour on the wooden counter, the subtle shine of water gathered in a metal bowl. She prepares tea without hurry, the sound of the kettle beginning as a low murmur, then rising to a steady hum. Steam curls upward in soft spirals, and she pours slowly, watching the pale liquid fill the cup. The scent of it, warm and delicate, fills the air, grounding her in the present moment. She carries the cup back to the parlor and sets it beside her chair. The fire is quieted to a slow rhythm now, the flames low, their light steady. She lifts the cup, the porcelain warm against her fingers, and takes a small sip. The taste is simple, familiar, comforting. She closes her eyes. In the distance, the sound of wind moves gently through the chimney, blending with the pulse of the fire. There is no thought of before or after, only the deep stillness of now. As evening approaches, the house begins to shift again. The light turns dim and cool, the edges of the room softening into shadow. She rises and draws the curtains, the sound of the fabric sliding over the rod smooth and rhythmic. The fire flickers once, then steadies. In this half-light, the world feels suspended. She lights another lamp, and its glow pools softly across the floor. The clock ticks on. Each moment folds quietly into the next, seamless, without beginning or end. She moves toward the stairs, one hand resting lightly on the rail. The wood beneath her fingers is smooth, worn by years of touch. Each step upward feels measured, deliberate, as though the house itself breathes with her ascent. At the top, the hallway stretches ahead, dimly lit. Doors closed, silence complete. She walks past them one by one, her steps muffled by the rug beneath her feet. In her room, the air feels cooler, scented faintly with lavender and linen. She opens the window slightly, letting in the evening breeze. The sky outside is soft gray, deepening toward night. The first stars emerge faintly, their light trembling through the mist. She stands there for a while, listening to the faint rustle of leaves, the sigh of the wind moving through branches. The world feels distant, but kind. A vast quietness that asks for nothing but awareness. She closes the window gently and turns back toward the bed. When she lies down, the sheets feel cool, the fabric smooth against her skin. The lamp burns low, casting a circle of gold that fades at the edges. The sound of the clock downstairs continues, steady and patient, marking the rhythm of a house that has learned once again how to rest. Her breath slows, her body softens, and the silence around her expands until it feels infinite. The house holds her gently, not as a place of memory, but as a companion in stillness. The rain has gone, leaving the air fresh and calm. The door, once closed, remains so, not as an ending, but as a boundary keeping the peace within. Inside there is no emptiness, only space filled with quiet, with breath, with the gentle motion of life continuing in its most tender form. And as night deepens, the flame in the fireplace sinks lower, the last glow flickering once before, surrendering to the dark. The woman sleeps, the house sleeps, and the silence, vast and tender, continues to breathe. The journey to the small house. The morning arrives with the faint glow of pale light resting on the horizon, soft and uncertain, as though the sun itself hesitates to disturb the quiet world it touches. The air outside is cool and damp, carrying the scent of soil and wood, the kind of stillness that feels like a pause between one life and another. The woman stands by the window, hands folded loosely before her, watching as the mist begins to lift above the rooftops. The city feels far away now, though she has not yet left it. The day ahead is one of movement, yet it unfolds with the same slow rhythm that has guided her through all her days of silence. Her belongings are few, carefully chosen, each one placed in a small trunk near the door. The house she is leaving behind feels neither empty nor full. It simply exists, holding its breath as it always has. She moves from room to room one final time, her fingers brushing against familiar surfaces. The corner of a table, the edge of a frame, the fabric of a chair that has held the shape of many quiet evenings. She does not linger, but she does not hurry. The stillness she carries with her has become part of her, and so even the act of leaving happens without sound. Outside, the carriage waits. The driver nods once, his face calm beneath the brim of his hat. The horses shift their weight, their breath rising in faint clouds that dissolve into the cool morning air. The wheels are already wet with dew. She steps forward, her boots meeting the stone path with a soft echo. The air moves gently around her as she climbs into the carriage, her skirt settling in folds around her. When the door closes, the sound feels final, but not sorrowful, merely the sound of something continuing in its natural course. The carriage begins to move, its slow rhythm blending with the steady beat of the horses' hooves. The city fades behind her, the familiar streets giving way to open land. The air smells cleaner here, touched by grass and distant rain. Fields stretch out on either side, the earth dark and rich beneath the thin veil of mist. The wheels creak softly with each turn, a sound steady enough to lull the mind into calm. She watches the landscape unfold, her gaze resting on nothing in particular. Trees passing in slow procession, fences half hidden by fog, the faint curve of a river glinting like silver beneath the morning light. The journey continues without words. The driver hums quietly to the horses, and the rhythm of motion becomes a kind of lullaby. The woman leans back slightly, her hands resting in her lap, her eyes half closed. The rocking of the carriage carries her through memory and beyond it, not as thoughts, but as impressions. Soft edges of color, the texture of air, the feeling of light moving across her skin. The road bends gently through the countryside, and each turn feels like a page, turning in a book, written entirely in silence. As the hours pass, the mist lifts fully, revealing a sky washed in pale blue. The light grows warmer, slipping through the branches of tall oaks that line the path. Birds move quietly among the leaves, their wings stirring the still air without sound. She watches them without focus, simply aware of their motion, of the effortless way they rise and vanish again. The journey feels endless and weightless, as if she has always been moving, always carried forward by this quiet current of air and earth. By noon, they stop to rest near a meadow. The driver tends to the horses, murmuring to them in low tones, while she steps out to stretch her legs. The grass is cool beneath her shoes, damp with dew that has not yet dried. The wind moves lightly through the wild flowers, and the sound it makes is soft and round, a whisper that seems to hum through her bones. She breathes deeply, her lungs filling with the clean scent of open fields. There is no thought of destination here, no sense of arrival or departure, only the endless motion of the world continuing around her, calm and unhurried. When they continue again, the landscape changes slowly. The hills rise and fall like gentle waves, and small cottages appear in the distance, smoke curling faintly from their chimneys. The woman watches them pass, each one a quiet life tucked neatly into the folds of the land. The road narrows, bordered now by low stone walls, covered in moss. The trees lean closer together, their branches weaving a canopy that filters the afternoon light into shifting patterns. It feels as if the world is drawing inward, wrapping itself around her in calm embrace. By the time the carriage reaches the edge of a small village, the light has begun to fade again. The houses are simple, their windows glowing softly in the dusk. A few figures move along the path, carrying baskets, closing shutters, tending to the last tasks of the day. Their movements are slow, their gestures easy. No one hurries here. The rhythm of this place is one she recognizes instantly. The rhythm of breath, of stillness, of life, unfolding without urgency. The carriage turns down a narrow road bordered by tall hedges. Beyond them lies the small house that will soon become her home. It stands at the edge of a field, its roof low, its walls pale beneath the last light of the setting sun. Smoke drifts gently from the chimney, curling upward before disappearing into the dim sky. The driver brings the horses to a stop, and the sound of hooves ceases, leaving only the quiet hum of evening insects and the soft sigh of the wind. She steps down carefully, her feet meeting the earth with quiet certainty. The ground feels different here, softer, more yielding, as though it remembers every step that has ever crossed it. She stands for a moment, breathing in the scent of grass and wood smoke. The door of the small house stands open, waiting, the warm glow from within spilling gently onto the threshold. Inside, the air is still and kind. The furniture is plain, the walls bare, the light soft. A single chair stands by the hearth, a small table beside it. The fire burns low, its warmth subtle but steady. She sets her trunk near the wall, unfastens the clasp, and lifts the lid. Inside are only the things she needs: a few garments, a small book, a folded shawl. She places each one carefully in its place, not as an act of arranging, but as an introduction, as if she is meeting the space rather than filling it. The sound of the carriage leaving fades into the distance. For a long moment there is only silence. She walks to the window, looking out over the field, where the wind moves gently through the tall grass. The last light of day rests there, golden and soft, before dissolving into shadow. She stands quietly, her reflection faint in the glass, her body still, her breath slow. When night comes, she lights a single candle and sits by the fire. The flames move with a quiet rhythm, the shadows on the wall shifting with each flicker. She does not think of what was left behind, nor of what lies ahead. The house, the air, the silence, all hold her in the present, in the still, unbroken moment that belongs entirely to itself. The journey has ended not with arrival, but with continuation. The small house welcomes her not as a guest, but as part of its stillness. And as the night deepens and the wind moves gently through the grass outside, she closes her eyes, letting the quiet settle over her like a soft blanket. The world narrows to breath, to warmth, to peace, and the rhythm of life begins again, slow and serene. The first days in the countryside. The first morning in the small house begins with the gentle light of dawn seeping through the thin curtains, pale and tender, as if it has come to greet her personally. The air carries the scent of damp wood and grass, and somewhere outside, the faint rustle of wind passes through the trees, moving like a slow breath over the land. The woman opens her eyes slowly, her body still half wrapped in the rhythm of sleep. For a long while she lies still, listening to the silence that fills the room. It is not an empty silence, but one alive with small sounds, the soft creak of the floor as it settles, the whisper of branches brushing against the wall, the quiet rhythm of her own breathing blending with the morning. When she finally rises, the light has grown stronger, laying soft gold across the room. The wooden floor is cool beneath her feet, the air crisp and pure. She moves with the same unhurried grace that has become her way of living, pulling the shawl from the chair and wrapping it loosely around her shoulders. The house is small, yet it feels wide and open, filled with calm air that drifts gently from room to room. Each space holds its own quiet purpose. A table near the window, a small shelf with books, a kettle resting on the hearth. Nothing here demands attention. Everything simply waits, patient and still. She opens the door and steps outside. The world greets her softly, bathed in light that glows through a thin veil of mist. The grass bends gently under her shoes, damp with dew, and the air feels alive with the distant hum of insects beginning their day. In the far field, the line of trees sways with slow rhythm, their leaves trembling in the faintest wind. Beyond them the hills roll endlessly, their shapes blending into the sky in muted tones of green and blue. It feels as though the world itself is breathing, slow and deep, and she finds herself breathing with it. She walks toward the garden behind the house. The soil there is dark and rich, still damp from the night's cool air. A few wildflowers grow along the fence, their petals fragile but determined. She kneels, brushing her hand lightly across the leaves, feeling the earth's texture beneath her fingers. There is a comfort in its simplicity, a quiet strength in its silence. She gathers a few herbs that grow near the stone path, their scent clean and sharp, and carries them back inside. The act feels small but complete. as though it belongs perfectly within the rhythm of her morning. Inside, she sets a pot to boil. The sound of the bubbling water fills the kitchen with life, a soft music that harmonizes with the crackle of the small fire. She adds the herbs, their fragrance spreading slowly through the air, mingling with the faint scent of smoke and pine. She pours the tea and sits by the window to drink it, her hands wrapped around the warm cup. Outside, the mist continues to lift, revealing the clear outline of the path that leads beyond the house. A bird lands on the fence, its feathers glinting faintly in the sunlight, and for a moment the quiet world feels perfectly whole. The days in the countryside unfold gently, each one blending into the next without effort or design. She wakes early, opens the windows to let in the air, and tends to the small garden that has begun to grow. She learns the rhythm of the land, the way the light moves across the hills, the way the sound of the wind changes from morning to dusk, the way the stars appear one by one as night deepens. She finds comfort in repetition, in the slow unfolding of simple tasks. There is no rush to finish them, no need to name their purpose. Each act, watering a plant, mending a curtain, sweeping the floor, is enough in itself, complete as it is. In the afternoons, she often walks beyond the field. The path curves along a small stream, its water clear and slow, gliding over smooth stones that catch the light like pieces of glass. The sound of it is constant but soft, a gentle murmur that seems to follow her wherever she goes. Sometimes she stops to watch the way the sunlight dances on the surface, or the way the leaves drift and spin before being carried away. She sits on a flat stone near the water's edge and listens to the quiet song of the world. Here, thought dissolves easily. The mind opens like the sky above her, empty, vast, at peace. As evening approaches, the air cools and the light turns to amber. She returns to the house, the sound of her steps blending with the low hum of insects in the tall grass. The sky above stretches endlessly, painted in fading shades of gold and rose. She gathers wood for the fire, each piece fitting neatly into her arms, and by the time the first stars appear, the firelight flickers through the windows, casting warm shadows on the walls. Inside, she prepares her meal, bread, a bit of fruit, a small bowl of soup that simmers quietly on the hearth. The scent fills the room, soft and inviting. She eats slowly, without hurry, her eyes drifting to the window, where the last of the daylight fades. The world outside grows quiet again, the sound of wind replaced by the chorus of crickets. When she finishes, she clears the table, the clink of the dishes, a small reminder of life continuing in the gentlest way. Sometimes she reads in the evenings, though not always. The books are old, their pages slightly yellowed, their words filled with distant places and quiet thoughts. She reads slowly, not for meaning but for rhythm, letting the cadence of the sentences carry her deeper into calm. Other times, she simply sits by the fire, her hands folded, her gaze resting on the slow motion of the flames. There is peace in the stillness, a sense that the world has folded itself neatly around her, asking nothing more than that she remain and breathe. When night comes, she opens the door once more before sleep. The air is cool, carrying the scent of grass and the faint trace of smoke from distant hearths. The moon rises over the hills, its light silver and soft, casting long shadows across the ground. The field shimmers faintly, each blade of grass glinting like thread in the quiet dark. She stands there, feeling the air against her skin, her heart moving in rhythm with the stillness. It is a world both vast and close, alive yet perfectly calm. Back inside, the small house feels warm. It's quiet, deep, but gentle. She extinguishes the lamp and lies in bed, listening to the sounds that drift in from outside, the call of an owl, the murmur of the wind through the trees, the slow breathing of the earth as it settles into rest. Each sound folds into her mind like a lullaby, soft and endless. Her body grows heavy, her breath slows, and the darkness around her feels tender, like the closing of a hand around something precious. The days in the countryside do not rush or fade. They linger, patient and full. Each morning brings the same gentle beginning, each night the same calm conclusion. There is comfort in this constancy, in the quiet pulse of a life unburdened by expectation. The woman, once surrounded by walls and silence, now lives within the open stillness of the earth itself. She belongs to its rhythm now, to the slow turning of the sky, the hush of the trees, the breath of the wind moving softly across the fields. And as the night deepens once more, the house, the land, and the woman breathe together in harmony, a single, steady rhythm that carries her gently into sleep, where even dreams move as softly as the air outside her door. The new habits and the quiet rhythm. The days begin to form a pattern, soft and predictable, like ripples spreading slowly across a calm lake. Each morning arrives with light that slips gently through the curtains, pale at first, then warm and golden as the sun climbs higher. The woman wakes before the world around her fully stirs, her eyes opening to the faint sound of wind brushing the eaves of the roof. She lies still for a while, listening to the house breathe, wood creaking as it warms, a single bird calling outside, the distant murmur of water somewhere beyond the fields. The silence is not absence but fullness, rich and alive, and she feels it move through her like a slow pulse. Her habits have taken shape without her planning them. They emerge naturally, guided by the rhythm of the land and the quiet pull of necessity. She rises, folds the blanket neatly, and opens the window to let the morning air drift in. It smells of dew and earth and something faintly sweet, perhaps the wildflowers that grow near the edge of the path. She lights the small stove, sets the kettle upon it, and watches the thin curl of steam rise in the cool air. The sound of boiling water, the soft scrape of a spoon, the warmth of the cup in her hands. Each small act carries its own completeness. She eats simply, bread still fresh from the day before, a bit of honey, a handful of berries she gathered near the fence. She eats slowly, without distraction, her thoughts quiet as the room itself. The light shifts as she finishes, reaching farther across the table, touching her hands, her hair, the wood beneath the cup. There is peace in the way the morning unfolds, unhurried and precise, as though the world has chosen to move at her pace. When she steps outside, the day has already begun to bloom. The fields stretch out in every direction, their greens deep and varied, trembling lightly in the breeze. She walks along the narrow path that leads toward the garden, her fingers brushing against tall grasses that sway beside her. Each step feels deliberate, each breath drawn in rhythm with the earth. The air hums faintly with the sound of bees, with the rustle of leaves, with the quiet life of the countryside awakening around her. She bends to tend the plants, pulling weeds, watering the soil, tracing the tender shoots that have begun to grow strong. Her hands become part of the earth's slow language, patient and wordless. By midday, the sun sits high above, and she pauses her work to rest beneath the shade of the old tree that stands near the back of the house. Its branches stretch wide, its roots deep, and she leans against its trunk as though it were a friend. The sound of wind moving through the leaves surrounds her, soft and layered, a whispering that soothes the mind into stillness. She closes her eyes, letting the rhythm of it carry her into that quiet place where thought drifts into calm. The hours pass unnoticed, the sun shifting gently, shadows changing shape across the ground. In the afternoon, she turns her attention indoors. The house has become not just a shelter, but an extension of her being, a living space that moves and breathes with her. She sweeps the floors slowly, the sound of the broom soft and steady, like a heartbeat. She mends the curtains where the fabric has begun to thin, her needle gliding through the cloth with the same care she gives to her garden. On some days she bakes a loaf of bread, the scent of it warm and golden, filling the small rooms, seeping into the wood of the walls. On other days she writes small notes or copies, passages from old books, her handwriting steady, the ink drying slowly on the page. Each motion becomes part of the same quiet rhythm, the continuous flow of living. As the light begins to soften toward evening, she takes her walks. The path leads down toward the stream where the water moves with patient sound, brushing over stones worn smooth by time. She follows its curve until it meets the small bridge, its wooden boards pale from years of weather and sun. Here she pauses, resting her hands upon the railing, looking down at the reflection of the sky in the moving water. Clouds drift across its surface, bending and reforming with each ripple. Sometimes she drops a leaf into the stream and watches it travel slowly away, carried toward places unseen. She does not wonder where it goes. Watching it drift feels enough, a quiet gesture of surrender to the flow of time itself. When she returns home, the air carries the faint scent of evening. The birds have quieted, their calls replaced by the soft hum of insects. The sky fades from gold to pale rose, then to the deep blue that marks the boundary of night. She lights the lamp on the table, its flame small but steady, spreading a circle of warm light across the room. The shadows shift gently, softening the corners, turning everything into shapes of quiet comfort. She prepares her supper, eats slowly, then washes each dish with care. Even the sound of water running into the basin feels harmonious, a note in the ongoing song of her days. Later, she sits by the window with her embroidery. The fabric rests easily in her lap, the thread gliding through in slow, deliberate motions. The pattern she creates is simple: small flowers, delicate vines, the kind of design that feels timeless. The act itself becomes a meditation, her breath matching the rhythm of the needle, her mind empty and clear. The room grows darker, the fire burns low, and still she continues, not from duty, but from the quiet pleasure of continuity. Occasionally, a sound rises from outside, the faint hoot of an owl, the rustle of a fox moving through the grass. Each noise is gentle, absorbed quickly into the vast silence of the night. She looks up from her work, her gaze resting on the faint outline of her reflection in the window. Behind it, the stars shimmer faintly, scattered across the sky in patient brightness. The sight fills her with a kind of soft stillness, as though she too has become part of the night's quiet breathing. Before sleep, she takes a moment to sit in the doorway. The cool air touches her face, carrying the scent of earth and distant water. The land stretches outward, infinite in its calm. The moon hangs above, pale and constant, its light washing over the fields in silver. The quiet feels vast yet intimate, surrounding her, holding her. There is no loneliness here, only the deep companionship of silence. When she finally returns to bed, the sheets are cool, the air still. She listens to the faint ticking of the clock, the distant murmur of the wind, the steady beat of her heart. Her mind drifts without direction, her body sinking into rest. The habits of her days, the tending, the walking, the small acts of care have become her anchor, her way of speaking to the world without words. They carry her gently from waking to sleep, from one day to the next, in an unbroken rhythm of calm. Outside, the night deepens, the stars hold their light, and the world turns quietly beneath them. Within the small house, the woman sleeps, her breath steady and slow, her dreams woven from the same threads as the life she has built, soft, patient, and endlessly at peace. Winter and adaptation. The first touch of winter arrives quietly, not as a storm or a sudden chill, but as a gentle change in the air, a stillness that settles across the land. The mornings grow colder, the mist thicker, and the sunlight slower to appear. When the woman wakes, her breath leaves faint clouds in the air, dissolving as quickly as they form. The sound of the world has softened. Even the birds seem to move with greater care, their calls fewer, their wings cutting through the gray sky like muted strokes of ink. The fields, once green and alive, now sleep beneath a thin veil of frost. Each blade of grass glitters like glass in the early light, and the earth itself seems to rest. She adjusts easily to the change, as if her life has always been meant for such quiet seasons. Her movements grow slower, more deliberate. In the mornings, she wraps herself in layers of wool and lights the fire before anything else. The small flame flickers, catches, and grows, its warmth spreading across the room in gentle waves. She sits close to it, her hands extended toward the heat, her eyes watching the fire's slow dance. There is a comfort in this ritual, in the soft crackle of wood and the glow that turns the walls gold. The days grow shorter, the hours of light precious and few. She spends them carefully. Each morning after tea, she steps outside to walk the path that leads beyond the field. The ground beneath her boots crunches with frost, and the air bites at her skin, sharp but clean. The landscape has changed color, browns and silvers where there were once greens, shadows where there was once movement. The stream near the edge of the field has begun to freeze along its banks, its surface thin and fragile, holding reflections of the pale sky. She pauses to watch it, the faint sound of running water beneath the ice, like a secret whisper beneath silence. In the afternoon, she works indoors. The garden, now sleeping under frost, needs no tending, so her hands find new rhythms. She mends clothes, polishes wood, and sorts through the few belongings she brought with her, folding and arranging them with care. The sound of her work is soft, the pull of thread through fabric, the clink of a cup placed gently on the table, the sigh of a chair shifting as she moves. The small house becomes a cocoon of warmth and routine, alive not with noise but with presence. When she cooks, the air fills with the scent of simmering broth, of herbs dried months before, of bread baking slowly near the fire. The warmth of the kitchen feels deeper than heat. It feels like safety, like the world drawing closer to protect what it holds. She moves through each task with quiet grace, the repetition of motion becoming its own language. There is no need for thought, no reason for rush. The act of doing is enough. The act of being within it, complete. Some days bring snow, light at first, then steady, falling in small flakes that drift and spin in the wind. She watches from the window as the world outside turns white, the lines of the earth disappearing beneath soft layers. The sound of snow is unlike any other, so quiet it seems to absorb all else. The trees stand motionless, their branches silvered, their weight bowed slightly under the softness. When she steps outside, the world feels entirely new. Her boots sink into the snow with a muffled sound, and her breath rises in pale clouds. The stillness is immense, wrapping around her like a living thing. She collects firewood from the small shed beside the house, stacking it neatly by the hearth. Each piece carries the faint scent of earth and sap, a reminder of seasons past. When evening comes, she lights the lamps early, their glow reflecting in the window panes, turning the snow outside into shimmering fields of gold. The house feels smaller in winter, yet it holds her more gently, its warmth deepened by the cold, pressing softly at the walls. Nights stretch longer now. The fire burns until late, the flames lowering to embers that pulse like quiet hearts in the dark. She reads by the dim light, her eyes moving slowly across the page. Sometimes she does not read at all, but simply listens to the faint creak of wood expanding in the heat, to the sigh of the wind brushing the windows, to the deep silence that fills the spaces between. The silence of winter is different from that of other seasons. It is thicker, heavier, but not oppressive. It feels ancient, as if the land itself has entered a long, peaceful dream. On some mornings, she finds the window frozen from the inside, delicate patterns etched across the glass like lace. She traces them lightly with her fingertip, feeling the coolness melt beneath her touch. The world beyond is pale and still, every sound subdued by the weight of snow. Yet there is life here too, a bird landing softly on the fence, the faint movement of a fox crossing the field, the trail of its paws marking the surface in a graceful line. She watches these small signs, and each one feels like a secret shared between her and the quiet world. As weeks pass, the routine becomes her rhythm, and the rhythm becomes her peace. She measures her days by small things: the sound of the kettle, the pattern of smoke rising from the chimney, the color of the sky when evening comes. The house, once simply shelter, has become her companion. The walls hold her warmth. The floors carry the echo of her steps. When the snow falls again, heavier this time, she feels no isolation. The silence it brings feels like the deep exhale of the world, a slow resting that mirrors her own. By midwinter, she has grown used to the hush. The days blend gently, their borders softened by the gray light. The fire burns almost constantly now, and she tends it with care, feeding it just enough to keep it alive. The sound of crackling wood becomes her heartbeat, its glow the center of her days. Sometimes she sits for hours watching the flame, her thoughts drifting without direction, her breath matching its slow rise and fall. Time no longer feels linear. It folds in on itself. Endless, circular, kind. Outside, snow still covers the ground, but there are moments when the light changes, moments when the air carries a new scent, faint but unmistakable. She notices it one afternoon as she opens the door, the scent of wet earth beneath melting snow, the sound of dripping water as ice begins to loosen its hold. It is the first whisper of change, the promise of something returning. She stands in the doorway for a long moment, her eyes following the glint of water along the path, the dark soil showing through in patches. The world, it seems, is preparing to wake again. She smiles, not with her lips, but with her stillness, the soft curve of calm that spreads through her chest. The winter has taught her not just to endure quiet, but to live within it, to find warmth not only in fire, but in the still pulse of time itself. That night, as she lies in bed, the house warm around her, and the snow melting slowly outside, she closes her eyes and listens. The silence has changed. It breathes now, faint but alive. Beneath the calm, she can feel the soft, slow turning of the earth, the quiet promise of life waiting just below the surface. And as sleep gathers her gently, she knows that even in stillness, the world is always moving forward. The voice of spring. The first signs of spring do not arrive all at once. They come quietly, like a whisper beneath the wind, a slow and steady thaw that begins before the eyes can see it. The woman senses it first in the air, the faint softness where there was once sharpness, the way the cold no longer holds so tightly to the morning. The frost that used to cling to the window fades more quickly now, leaving behind small rivers of water that trace paths down the glass. The fire still burns each morning, but the heat it gives no longer feels like a need. It feels like comfort. It feels like memory. One morning she steps outside and hears it, a single drop of water falling from the roof, then another and another, each one landing softly upon the thawing earth. The snow that has blanketed the world for months begins to loosen its grip, retreating into glistening patches that sparkle beneath the sun. The ground beneath her boots is damp and soft. Each step releases a faint scent of soil, of life waiting just beneath the surface. The trees, though still bare, stand different now. Their stillness feels charged, expectant, as though something within them has begun to stir. The days lengthen. The sun lingers in the sky a little longer each afternoon, and the light that pours through the windows grows warmer, more golden. The woman finds herself opening the curtains earlier, the air no longer biting but cool and tender. She moves through the house with a rhythm that feels lighter than before. Her hands, once busy with the steady work of survival, now move with quiet ease, tending, arranging, not out of need but out of care. The heaviness of winter is lifted, replaced by something almost invisible, a calm anticipation that hums softly beneath everything. Outside, the fields begin to change. The snow melts into thin streams that cut through the grass, carrying with them the remnants of the long cold. The earth drinks deeply, darkening, softening, readying itself for the return of green. Small shoots push through the soil near the edge of the garden, pale and fragile at first, bending under the weight of the air. She kneels beside them, her hands brushing gently over the damp ground. There is something sacred in this small beginning, something eternal in the way the earth renews itself without effort or sound. The stream near the field, once frozen in silence, runs freely again. Its voice is soft but constant, a low murmur that carries through the air. She follows it one afternoon, walking along its edge where the grass has begun to reappear. The sound of water fills the space around her like music, gentle, unhurried, endlessly flowing. The rhythm of her steps falls in time with it, and for a moment the world feels perfectly balanced. Everything moves without force. Everything breathes in harmony. In the evenings, the light stretches farther across the horizon. The sunsets linger longer now, their colors melting slowly into the land, rose, amber, violet, and then the deep blue of night. She stands by the door, watching the change unfold, her body still, her mind quiet. The wind carries the scent of wet soil and the faint trace of flowers not yet bloomed. Somewhere nearby a bird sings a single note, then another. It is not a song yet, only the beginning of one. Days pass like this, one soft moment blending into the next. She begins to spend more time in the garden, turning the soil with her hands, feeling its warmth return. The rhythm of her work changes with the season. There is less caution, more openness. The earth responds to her touch, yielding easily, breathing beneath her palms. She plants seeds, not out of need, but out of instinct, the simple desire to see life grow again. She waters them gently, her movements unhurried, her heart calm. The promise of what will come feels enough, even without seeing it yet. By mid-season, the transformation becomes visible. The grass deepens in color, the trees swell with buds that glimmer faintly in the morning light. The first flowers appear along the path, small and shy, their petals trembling in the breeze. The air is filled with quiet motion, the hum of bees, the flutter of wings, the whisper of leaves as they unfold. Each sound feels like an awakening, a voice returning after a long silence. She listens to them without thinking, her breath falling easily into their rhythm. Inside the house, the light moves differently now. It shifts through the windows in long ribbons, golden and alive, touching the floor and the furniture, warming the wood. She often pauses to watch how it travels across the room, how dust dances within it, how time seems to slow beneath its glow. The fire no longer burns during the day, yet the rooms remain warm, filled with a softness that comes from the light itself. She opens the windows more often, letting the wind move freely through the house. The air carries with it the scent of growing things, of the world rebuilding itself. One afternoon, she finds an old letter tucked between the pages of a book. The ink has faded, the paper delicate. It speaks of days long gone, of simple things, a garden, a walk, a shared meal. She reads it slowly, not for the story it tells, but for the way the words move, the way they breathe. When she finishes, she folds it carefully and places it back where she found it. The past, like winter, feels distant now, softened by the passage of time. It no longer calls her backward. It simply rests beside her, a quiet part of the rhythm she now lives within. The days continue to lengthen, the nights warm and filled with stars. The moon rises full, its light washing the fields in silver. She stands outside beneath it, her shawl wrapped loosely around her shoulders, the cool air brushing her face. The sound of frogs carries from the stream, their voices low and even, blending with the rustle of wind in the tall grass. The earth feels awake now, every part of it breathing, pulsing, alive. She feels it too. The long stillness of winter has not left her but changed her. The quiet she once held as a refuge has become something larger, a rhythm she now shares with the world. The days no longer feel like something to pass through. They unfold gently, one into another, each complete in its own way. She has learned the language of stillness, the way it shifts and transforms, the way it carries life even in its calmest moments. And so she lives within it. The mornings bring light, the evenings bring rest, and the hours between flow like water, steady, clear, unbroken. The voice of spring surrounds her, not in words or sound, but in presence. It hums through the soil, through the air, through her very breath. When she lies down at night, she listens once more. The wind moves gently through the trees outside, carrying with it the scent of blossoms just beginning to open. The sound of the stream reaches her window, soft and steady, endless in its quiet rhythm. Her eyes close, her body relaxes, and sleep gathers her slowly, like the earth pulling its warmth back into itself. Spring continues its song through the night, a voice without beginning or end, a melody the world has always known. Work and tranquility. The days now move in gentle rhythm, steady as breath. Morning light enters the house softly, touching the walls with gold. The woman wakes before the birds begin to sing. The air smells of earth and sun, and when she opens the door, the breeze carries warmth across her skin. The world has grown quiet again, not from cold or sleep, but from peace. Everything outside hums with calm energy, the fields breathing, the leaves trembling with light. Her life has settled into patterns as natural as the turning of the sky. Each day she works, not with urgency, but with ease. The garden calls to her first. She tends to it slowly, her hands moving through the soil with care. The plants have grown tall now, their leaves wide and strong. Some carry blossoms that sway with the wind, others small fruits, hidden beneath their shade. She kneels, brushing the dirt from her palms, and feels the steady beat of life. Beneath her fingertips, the sound of bees drifts nearby, low and soothing. After tending the garden, she walks the path toward the stream. The air there is cooler, the scent of water fresh and sweet. She stands on the bridge, watching the surface shimmer in sunlight. The water slides over the stones, each ripple catching the light, each sound blending into the next. Her reflection moves with the current, breaking and reforming as the water flows. She stays until the breeze changes, then turns back, her steps quiet against the path. Afternoons are for still work. The table by the window has become her place of focus. She sews, writes small notes, sometimes reads. The fabric slides through her fingers, soft and familiar. The paper catches the faint scratch of her pen. Outside, the light shifts slowly, filling the room with warmth. The shadows grow long, but never harsh. Time moves as gently as her hands. When she looks up, the world outside feels close, as though the distance between her and everything living has disappeared. The fields, the trees, the birds, all seem to breathe with her. Even the house feels alive, its quiet walls pulsing with warmth, its still air carrying the rhythm of her days. As the sun begins to lower, she prepares for the evening. The garden glows under the fading light, and she gathers herbs, greens, and flowers to place in a bowl of water near the window. The scent fills the house, light and fresh. In the kitchen, she cooks simple meals: bread, vegetables, tea. The sound of boiling water mixes with the faint hum of crickets starting to sing. Each sound fits perfectly into the stillness, completing the soft music of dusk. She eats slowly, seated by the open window. The wind touches her hair, the sky deepens from gold to gray. A single star appears, trembling faintly above the trees. She watches it as she drinks her tea, the warmth moving gently through her body. The world around her is silent now, but not empty. Every part of it holds quiet life. The breathing of the earth, the whisper of the wind, the steady pulse of her own heart. When the dishes are done, she lights the lamp by the window. Its glow is soft, almost like moonlight, and it spreads through the room in slow waves. The fire burns low, casting a quiet shimmer across the floor. She sits by the hearth, her hands folded in her lap. The day, with all its small tasks and movements, feels complete. She does not measure what she's done, nor think of what remains. There is no more waiting, no more searching, only the calm continuation of life itself. Outside, the night settles, the air cools, and the scent of grass deepens. The stars multiply, faint but clear, scattered across the dark sky. Somewhere far away, a night bird calls once, then falls silent. The sound of the stream carries faintly through the open window, flowing as it always does, constant and free. She rises, closes the shutters, and moves through the house. Each room glows with quiet warmth, each step soft against the wooden floor. When she reaches her bed, she pauses to listen. The wind, the insects, the distant rhythm of water. Everything is gentle, continuous. She lies down, the sheets cool, the air still. Her breath slows, matching the quiet beat of the world outside. This, she realizes, is what life has become. Not stillness as absence, but stillness as balance. The rhythm of work, of rest, of breath. The days no longer begin or end sharply. They flow one into another, seamless as the current of the stream. The lamp burns lower, the fire sighs once before quieting. The darkness folds softly around her. She closes her eyes, the faintest smile resting on her lips. The garden sleeps, the earth breathes, and she too drifts into that same peace, held by the silence, carried by the calm rhythm that never truly stops. Evening, the long and the gentle breath of peace. Evening comes slowly, as though the world itself has decided not to hurry anymore. The air is soft, carrying the faint scent of flowers and warm soil. The light fades in quiet layers, gold first, then rose, then the pale silver of twilight. The woman sits by the window, her hands resting in her lap, her eyes following the last glow of sun as it disappears behind the trees. The house holds its calm around her. The fire hums low, the clock ticks softly, and the rhythm of her breath fills the space between. Outside, the fields darken. The wind moves lightly across them, bending the grass in slow, graceful waves. A few birds cross the dim sky, their wings tracing gentle arcs before vanishing into the blue-gray distance. The world feels both vast and close, endless and contained. She watches without thought, without desire, her gaze steady and kind. The day slips away as naturally as a sigh, leaving nothing unfinished, nothing undone. She stands and lights the lamp. Its glow spreads across the room in a small circle, golden and steady. Shadows rise softly along the walls, stretching and swaying as the flame moves. She walks through the house one last time for the day, her steps quiet on the wooden floor. Each room greets her in silence, the kitchen still warm, the table cleared, the chair by the fire waiting. Everything feels at rest, alive in its stillness. She pours herself a cup of tea and sits again by the window. The cup warms her hands, the steam drifts upward and fades. Outside, the first stars appear, faint at first, then many, scattered across the sky like small breaths of light. The night holds them gently, and their glow seems to hum with the same calm that fills her. The stream's sound reaches her faintly from beyond the field, the same song it has always sung, steady, patient, endless. She thinks of the seasons that have passed, though not in words, only in feelings that move like water. The long silence of winter, the soft awakening of spring, the slow strength of summer. Each has lived within her, changed her, and now all of them rest quietly inside her, folded like pages in a book she no longer needs to read. Her life has become the rhythm of this place, the earth, the air, the light, and she belongs to it without question, without effort. The candle burns lower. She finishes her tea and lets her hands rest again in her lap. The night deepens, but the darkness feels tender, protective. The sound of crickets rises softly, a slow pulse beneath the hush. The wind moves through the open window, carrying with it the scent of the fields, cool and faintly sweet. She closes her eyes for a moment, breathing it in, letting it settle deep within her. The fire sighs, the lamp flickers, and time feels almost still. There is no past here, no future, only the quiet fullness of now. She feels it in her chest, that steady rhythm, the same one she has felt in the soil, in the water, in the air. It is the rhythm of life continuing, endlessly gentle, endlessly true. When she rises, the house seems to breathe with her. She moves slowly, turning down the lamp, setting her cup aside. Each motion is light, unhurried, final yet infinite in its calm. She steps to the door, opens it just enough to see the world outside one last time before sleep. The moon has risen fully, bathing the land in silver light. The fields shimmer softly, each blade of grass glowing faintly under its touch. The trees stand tall and still, their leaves whispering only when the wind passes through. The world seems to hold its breath, as though waiting with her in shared quiet. She smiles though no one sees it and closes the door. The latch falls softly into place, the sound small but complete. She moves to her bed, the sheets cool, the pillow smooth beneath her hands. The air carries the faint scent of the night through the half-open window. She lies down and listens. The stream, the wind, the far hum of life beyond the walls. Each sound folds into her gentle and familiar until there is no boundary between her breath and the world's. Her eyes close and the stillness deepens. The lamp flickers once, then goes out. Darkness fills the room, but it is not emptiness. It is soft, full of warmth, like the earth resting after a long day beneath the sun. Outside, the moon climbs higher, pouring light over the fields, over the small house, over everything that lives quietly in its glow. The world continues its slow turning. The water keeps flowing. The wind moves softly through the grass. And in the heart of it all, the woman sleeps, wrapped in the same peace that holds the land. Her breath rises and falls, steady as the rhythm of the earth. The long evening stretches onward, without haste, without end, carrying her gently into the silence that has no edges. There is no conclusion, only continuation. Light fading into dark, sound dissolving into stillness, the world exhaling softly into night.